It's been over a year since the world completely changed. A global pandemic changed all of our day-to-day lives, and without a doubt, this is the strangest time we'll ever live in. When everything started to get worse and worse, sporting leagues across the world shut down, people weren't able to see loved ones, and everything was just different. But the one constant was wrestling. Wrestling was there for us in a time where so many of us had to stay at home and didn't have much to do, but wrestling gave us an escape. As wrestling fans, we love to rag on it, whether it's bad booking, questionable tactics, or what have you. But I want to take some time out to look at the good and take you back to those months in March where the world was flipped upside down and wrestling did everything they could to give us something to hang our hats on. On March 12, 2020, the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a global pandemic. The world was constantly changing with this unknown virus, which was changing the way we live. After the first positive COVID test in a North American sports league, the NBA suspended their season, and so did every other league in North America. Obviously, when you're doing something which is so high contact and this virus is so easily transmitted, you need to take all the precautions necessary and limit it. WWE, on the other hand, isn't necessarily considered a sports league, but sports entertainment. For WWE, Wrestlemania was on the horizon, the biggest event of the year with hundreds of thousands of people coming in from all over the world, the singles return of Edge, and the possibility of Drew McIntyre finally climbing the mountain to become the WWE champion after 19 long years. But that quickly changed.
Breaking news, WrestleMania 36 will not happen here in Tampa. The WWE canceling it just hours ago.
On March 16, 2020, WWE announced that WrestleMania would still be taking place, but it would be coming to us without fans and it would be held in the Performance Center. The glory and brilliance of WrestleMania was stripped away just like that. Without fans, there is no show. Without it being in a huge stadium, there are no larger-than-life entrances. It's just another show, not to mention Roman Reigns pulled out of WrestleMania because he was immunocompromised. But WWE said they wanted to give the fans a show in these tough times and therefore decided that they would have it span 2 days. WrestleMania just didn't feel the same without the exploding pyro, huge set, and thousands of screaming fans. The silence in the arena was uneasy. It reminded us of the time we were living through. It was just that big that one of the biggest shows of the year in any entertainment or sports industry had nothing but silence surrounding it. At WrestleMania, WWE found crafty ways to keep us entertained. They introduced us to the cinematic match, which was a match that would take place across locations and have a mixture of storytelling, pyrotechnics, editing, and a lot of creativity. On night one, we were presented a Boneyard match between The Undertaker and AJ Styles. A lot of us weren't sure how this would work. Basically, both guys had a fight inside a cemetery, which was littered with cinematics throughout the match. The match earned rave reviews and was a production masterclass. I really can't do it any justice. It's something that you have to watch. The same production brilliance was brought to us on night 2 when WWE brought us the first ever Firefly Funhouse match. This match was basically a time portal into the careers of John Cena and Bray Wyatt. It told the story of Wyatt righting a wrong and spiced things up with a commercial-like feel. And then of course, Drew McIntyre won the WWE title after 19 long years in front of no one. Just because WrestleMania was taking place over this time, I don't want to forget AEW as well, because these guys were faced with the same challenge and so were so many other wrestling promotions across the world. Some even had to shut down. These promotions did whatever they could, hell or high water, to bring us shows. Coming out of WrestleMania, things only got worse and worse in the world. At points, there were even some talks of WWE having to shut down due to health orders. But instead of airing live shows, WWE decided to shoot a whole bunch of shows at once and have them broadcast in the upcoming weeks because in the end, they wanted us to be entertained. It could have been so easy for WWE to just bow out and say they wouldn't be bringing us weekly programming anymore, but they didn't, and they instead ran empty arena shows. Going back and watching clips of these empty arena shows, they just hit different. The sounds you hear from the wrestlers are uncomfortable because when you have a crowd, a lot of that gets drained out. Every move, every chop, every breath you could hear in those empty arena shows, and it really put into perspective the time we were living in. Slowly, WWE started to use their own talents as fans, and the feels somewhat changed, but it was still nowhere close to a regular show. Yearly concepts like Money in the Bank were altered to be more creative, and WWE gave us some great matches like Randy Orton and Edge at Backlash, and Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles on an episode of SmackDown. WWE motored on with their programming and introduced us to the WWE Thunderdome, basically a regular WWE arena with LED panels which fans could sit into the show. This was a way to bring the sounds of wrestling back by piping in noise and having a bit of a fuller setting. On the WWE side, I want to talk about some specific people who I consider sort of the MVPs of this pandemic era. The first being the WWE champion at the time, Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre had won the WWE title at Wrestlemania. This was a moment 19 years in the making, which happened in front of no one. But Drew made it his mission to deliver on his run, and that's exactly what he did. Drew McIntyre brought this aura around him every time he was on screen. Yes, he was a babyface, but he didn't make all those dumb babyface mistakes. He was smart and calculated and was up for any challenge. He outsmarted opponents with his raw power and delivered on the mic with his intense promos. The next MVPs are Bayley and Sasha Banks. These two made the women's tag team titles feel relevant while still giving us a little bit of a tease into their upcoming feud. These two were can't miss every time they were around. The next MVP sort of bleeds with these two, and that's Asuka. One thing I didn't touch on earlier was Becky Lynch left WWE because she had a child on the way. So after Asuka won the Women's Money in the Bank, she was awarded the Raw Women's Championship. Asuka during this time excelled. She delivered solid matches, her mannerisms and ability meshed so well with Sasha Banks and Bayley, and it made those three can't miss every single week. And the last one is Roman Reigns. I mentioned that Roman Reigns had taken a leave from WWE in the early days of the pandemic, but when he returned, he very quickly became the best part about WWE. I made a whole separate video on that, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but he's basically become everything wrestling fans wanted him to be. He completely overhauled his character and made us interested in his every move. Those are 4 of the people I'll remember a lot from this pandemic era, but so many other people have put in the work, like Randy Orton, Seth Rollins, The Hurt Business, Alexa Bliss, among others. Wrestling over the past year has given us an escape. They've given us unexpected moments, solid matches, and some things which were long overdue. Things are very slowly starting to return. This year's WrestleMania is looming, and it's been confirmed that it's going to be in Raymond James Stadium, where last year's was supposed to be. The best part is that fans will be in attendance. You can bash WWE or AEW or wrestling in general all you want, but during a time unlike any other, they continued to deliver us content and they gave us something to look forward to. So let me know in the comments below what's been your favorite match or moment in this pandemic era, and I will see you in the next one.